product market fit, what it means to you first. Let's at least set the scene for everybody, and then we'll take it on into whether it's illusion or disruption in SaaS later on. Alexis.
Sure. I think it's all about like finding a market. So when you are really trying to disrupt something or disrupt a market, and when you are really trying to go for innovation, you really have to find a market, because you are not like just like copying something existing or just like developing another kind of existing solution. So I think it's all about like finding a new market, discovering. It's about like the act of discovering a market to really like build something new and something disruptive, bringing value to the end user.
Excellent. Gilles, what's your sense?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the product market fit is, and I'm probably going to start off the next topic, but it's not about of course, finding the market and the product, but also, and that's what we have experimented, is to really find the business model around it, but also to how do you what are the channels, the acquisition, and all these topics has to be addressed and has to be combined for me to address the product market. So product market fit by itself is a good thing, but actually it's probably broader than just that.
Excellent. And Hannah, what's your sense?
I think agree with that. It's definitely bigger than just the product and the feature set and how you sell that into the market. And there's been an awful lot written about it, so I'm of the mind that it is a kind of thing, but I'm not sure it's right down to I don't know if you saw, there's all like down to the metric level, isn't there? All these different kind of indicators that you have product market fit. And I think my biggest thing with it is that it does evolve. It's not like, I totally agree, you don't find it and that is it. It's like a constantly evolving thing. And in fact, I think from our own experience, we've had like pockets of fit like along the way as we've scaled up towards like bigger sales, for example. But yeah, I totally agree with you as well that it is a more holistic approach.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting you bring that up in terms of having to change it. I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily get about product market fit. Is it really just a myth that it's a one-time big bang kind of thing? You find it, and then all of a sudden you're off to the races, and now you're looking at 50%, 100% growth. What does that look like?
First of all, if you find it and your revenue starts to grow and you get recommendation, just go for it, right? But down the road, you need to, over time, to verify on a feature basis. But you need always to question yourself and your market if you are the right fit. Otherwise, you will get competition, and you will get you might be in trouble. So yes, I mean, if you have it and have the chance to find it, but that's obvious that you have to to push on it. But on the other hand, that's an ongoing check.
I mean, actually, you've been involved in some pretty sizable companies, Gilles. Is it the case that as you get bigger, it actually gets harder because now people are gunning for you, and so somebody who comes along with a startup might disrupt what you're doing, and now all of a sudden it doesn't matter what you have. Right?
That's obvious, because as much as you grow as a company, when you get 300-400 and you have a VP of product and etc., they really started to be disconnected from the market. As a startup, you are really, me, I'm a CEO, we are about 20 people, I'm just, answering to support calls and etc. So I'm really involved. The company will grow, and I won't have the time or the luxury to do it. And same thing for the VPs. So as such, they start to forget that aspect. And I think the article from Bradfeld was about that. It's really how you get input and feedbacks. So that's definitely the case, and that's very often what makes some small company to bypass and to start to compete with the bigger one.
Yeah. I mean, is it obvious when you found it, or is that another illusion?
I don't know. I mean, like say for us so far, there's been like little pockets of it. Like in the early days when we were, a few years ago when we were kind of working all this out, we had some semblance of product market fit, but with the different market that we sell to now. As we kind of moved up market from selling to like smaller companies to scaling and enterprise SaaS companies, we had traction revenue down here, so that's a semblance of market fit, right? But it wasn't where we've ended up going. So yeah, it does change, and it depends what's going on in the market. It depends on so many things.
That's also a point when down the road you discover that you're addressing a market which might be from the revenue perspective or whatever, might be not the right one. So it's also about the business model. So you have to change it, but then you have to adapt everything, all the channels, the way you acquire. Maybe freemium will not be necessary anymore. So you have to change that over time. So it's not a one-time event, and that's something which is, again, an ongoing process.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely evolving over time, and I think it's very hard to define because, for example, if we take another perspective, so if you are launching a web-based product which is free, you can get like thousands of users, maybe 10 of thousands of users, but then it's a free product. So did you find the market? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, and it's very hard to say because when you are switching from a free product to a paid product, then will you find the market fit? I think it's, again, hard to say. I have in mind like Twitter, like, so they have millions of users, everybody on Twitter, but yet I'm not sure that it's yet a profitable companies, and I guess they have hard time by like finding the right business model and everything. So we could also see that question with the perspective like, do you find the market fit even if it's a free product, or do you only find a market fit if like your user have to pay for your product?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of interesting. There's actually a really good question in from someone in the audience. They're calling themselves anonymous, so I hope you don't hack all of our mobile phones while we're here. But asking, how did you know that your company reached product market fit? You know, do you ask any particular questions to assess it? Is there anything that is a particular KPI metric, anything you can spot that says we have reached product market fit, or is it not that simple?
In some ways, yes. In a lot of ways, no. It's one of those questions that don't product market fit. Trying to think of a good example for us, right, is when we started to sell more to the enterprise, because we were like collecting like prioritized list of kind of feedback and requirements of these enterprise companies. We really started to understand what we needed to have like on a product level. What did we need on a product level to close the deals with these enterprise customers? And 18 months ago, we simply didn't have the features in the product that would allow us to sell to the enterprise. So that was a very kind of feature product-led slice of product market fit for us. Is kind of like the best experience I can explain from our point of view. But yeah, it changes all the time, and it's a very wide topic, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, any particular questions you would ask of your team?
Yeah, I mean, on our side, I mean, the interesting part is there is two factors. One is, again, when my customers start to recommend my product without me asking. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that what we can measure, and that's the purpose also of our product, which is customer success, is that how you reduce the gap between the feature and the usage of those features. Because very often, we tend at the beginning of a product to develop a lot of features, and the customers are not going to use them. And as much as they use them, which is, again, the purpose of customer success is to promote the new features and to make the usage of that product, and to reduce the gap significantly. So that's a way to measure it. I mean,
sure. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's a feeling. I think it's very hard to define. Like if you have the market fit, I think from some point you can feel it. In our position, for example, from some point when we launched our product, after a few weeks, we were having like tens of people sending us message saying, "Wow, what you are doing is really great. Like your product is great. There's definitely a need." And people were sending us like this message every day and over multiple weeks. Mm-hmm. So when you are in that position, you can really feel that there's a need. You have people in need of something, and they are trying to tell your company or your team, "Wow, like go ahead, keep working on it because there's definitely something." So you should invest more of your work and time on that product. So I think from some point, your users, your potential customers are telling you if you have it or not, and that's very important to listen to them and make sure you are really like listening to them like over time, every day, because that's really them. You will get that information, that feedback and feeling from them.
Is it easier to use real metrics, real KPIs once you get to initial scale, once you get to $1 million monthly run rates than it is then when you're just starting out? I mean, when you're just starting out, it's got to be all about feelings and customer feedback. Yeah. But is there anything that you can really put your finger on once you've hit initial scale, which is a lot easier to measure for product market fit?
So in my opinion, when you don't have many users, it's easy to measure because you don't have many users, so you can get it's quick to get some data and analytics from them. But then when you have a large mass of users, it's becoming harder in the sense that you have to deploy the right tools and the right metrics, and you have to get that tools ready to deliver the metrics in real time. So I think it's balanced. When you don't have much users, you can get some data, and it's quite easy to get some analytics. When you have more users, you need more tools. You need to be to have a better equipment to really get the analytics real time.
But that's also the purpose of the product market fit, is to find the right metrics as well. So it's a chicken and eggs kind of situation here.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the same for me as well. Like from the early days, we measured very different things early on to what we do now, and that's been like an evolution as everything is in the company. But I think going back to your last point, the last question when it comes to metrics, I didn't quite realise this until we've started talking about it, but I think retention and customer lifetime value has been really key for us, and that's how I described earlier how we felt we had a semblance of product market fit at the lower end. The difference we see now versus back then is we used to have people used to churn out, whereas now the churn rate is negative churn now, which is completely different, and that helped us realise that this was the market we should be addressing.
Someone in the audience has pulled out the famous Ford quote. If I asked my customers what they wanted, they'd say faster horses. Back in the olden days of software, when we used to call it software houses and not startups, basically the way that we would build our businesses is developers would develop something and then they would task the sales and marketing team with figuring out how the hell to get it to market. You would eventually let the marketing team decide what to do next based on customer feedback. We now have flipped that model, and we're now seemingly building things that customers want. But to this point, how do you produce innovative products that people aren't thinking of and still manage to get product market fit?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough question. So I think first the product need to come from the need itself and from the market itself. And I think it's much easier to launch a startup or a company if you know that there's a need and if you know that need. Otherwise, it's very hard. Like if you say, okay, let's go to that industry and let's start that company, it's very hard because you don't know if there is any need. So it's much more easier to start a company and bootstrap a company when you start with a need. That's my perspective. And then after that, it's about finding the right balance in between listening to the potential customers, what they want, what they think is possible, and about balancing that with what is possible. Because otherwise they ask for horses rather than a car. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I recently talked with this guy called Pierre, he's head of the Voice of Customer program at Zendesk. Got him on the podcast, and Eva, we talked about this in depth. Understanding you shouldn't build the features customers ask for. You need to understand the pain point and the problem, and that's so true in the early days. I don't know about you two, but one of the things I'm most grateful for is that when we started building Receptive out of a need in our last SaaS company, but by doing that customer development, you've got to prove the need, right? And that's how you come up with the innovation. And it's not about building what people ask for, it's about you being creative and building a solution. It's a great point. Getting to that need is absolutely key.
Yeah, I totally agree with this. With the statement of Ford. And actually the PMF has really been made up for a tendency which is to create some feature-based products where basically it's quite easy to measure. For more complex products like solution, the PMF also works with education. So you need to educate your customer, not to force them to use your product, but to educate them on what is the value. Because if you are doing something really innovative, people won't even understand. Of course you can have a pitch, you can have a vision, and etc. But at the end, they will not understand fully the features.
Right.
So you need to educate them, and to educate them outside, which is all the marketing aspect, but also inside, so within the product, and to educate them on how to use the product. So I think that that's the reason I'm balanced on the PMF, on the definition of the PMF, because if you are really innovative, I've been founding companies where, even the VCs didn't understand. It happens to be a unicorn, but at the beginning, they didn't get it.
Right.
Okay, and they are very smart people anyway. So, but we have to educate the customers and to tell them what is the value they can get it, and then so for me, education is a big thing. That's also part of the customer success role within a company.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Balfour actually commented once that SaaS companies are just actually too tunnel vision focused on PMF, and they're focusing on it to the point where they're not actually putting the rest of their SaaS business together as a jigsaw puzzle. I mean, what else should we be thinking about in addition to PMF? Because we can't just focus on it on its own.
Actually, there is Brian did a very good post on in July this year, which is everyone should read, which is about the PMF, which is by itself. The definition needs to be broader. That's what I was mentioning, which is about the business model, which has the acquisition channel, and the product and the market. So I think there is different factors. I will put another one, which is also the experience of the company and the team within the company, because we can do a certain level of revenues, but if still the CEO is the sales guy, it's not. When I'm investing in a company, I'm not investing if there is not an outsider, somebody which came and is able to sell the product as well as the CEO, because a CEO or a founder will not, sell the same way. So PMF is also that part. So I think there is different factors, and his post was really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think as a company, you need to know where you are in the fourth stage. So if you are still like early stage in regard to your users, and where your user are in this fourth stage, if it's like early stage or if it's mature already, if they are mature, because I agree, it's all about education, and you can get a lot of friction if it's not like early stage user, or if it's not early adopters, you can get a lot of friction trying to sell them a product they maybe don't get. So I think you have to identify if you are currently starting working with like early adopters or not, and trying to really identify quickly if like you are currently discussing with a potential customer, and where are they in the maturity curve. So I agree with the education point, which is very important, and it's also telling you as a company where you are in regard to the product market fit, because if you are currently still discussing with like early adopters or not, I think it's not giving you, like, you are not in the same position as a company, pretty much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that point about early adopters.
Yeah.
That's so true. I think when it got really exciting for me is the early adopters are great, but then when you start selling to like established businesses, that's like another milestone.
That's another milestone.
So I'm starting to think more and more as product market fit. It's like it's layers, isn't it? And like you're both saying, there's lots of different things that happen along the way depending on the stage that you're at.
So, look, I really like this question that's come in from the audience, from Mossy. Thank you very much, Mossy. Have you ever been in a situation where you couldn't get product market fit and eventually gave up and decided the product was a failure? And how do you know when this is? And let's take no more than about 45 seconds each on this. Hannah, you want to?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. You've got to try loads of stuff, right? Otherwise, of course things fail all the time. Like businesses in the past have not worked out. We've had ideas where we've done that initial kind of customer development piece, and we've just gone, nah, this isn't going to work for loads and loads of different reasons. But yeah, the summary is of course, you've got to try there, right?
Exactly. When did you know that it was not going to work out? Was there a defining moment? Very quickly.
very different. That's a long story. Lots of different things along the way.
All right,
There's
so-
always been a moment, but those moments have all been very different.
All right, so you'll have to hassle Hannah afterwards.
Come and ask me about that.
Gilles?
I wouldn't say a product, but features essentially. You have a big feature in your product. You think that's going to really kill the market and etc. And it doesn't work out. How do you find it? Is really the usage. I mean, the customers don't get it and don't use it, you know. That's essentially and we had to drop it very often. I mean, actually, that happens, you know, a few times. It's because the audience, so the users, were not interested, but you know, because we're trying to escape or to broaden our market, and that wasn't a fit.
Okay, Alexis?
Yeah, so I believe failures is everywhere, and I think it's only related to the perspective you take. So if you take a perspective, on a company perspective, you can fail as a company. On a product perspective, you can fail as a product. On a feature perspective, you can fail as a feature. And then I guess you have sub features and other smaller things and smaller items. So everything can fail. I think failure is everywhere. I think it's part of the deal. And I think through test and try, you can then get some success out of the failures you have. But let's say that most of the time you will fail, and a few times you will succeed. That's really my perspective.
Fantastic. Listen, I think we just had what's called a panel on market fit. So thank you ever so much to our wonderful panel. Please give them your appreciation. Thanks very much.